Okay, we've gotten through all the things that we need to do, so I want to welcome our fabulous guests who are going to be with us today. We are welcoming Nicole Donovan. She's been with us before, and she is the author of the book A Life Suspended. And for the first time, we are welcoming J.M. Crawford. She is author of the book Choices. And these two ladies, it's, a lot of times we'll have an author on and they will talk about their book. But these two ladies have joined together and are going out and have a mission together with their two books. And we're going to talk with them about that, why they wrote these books. Let's welcome them to the show right now, ladies. There you are. It's such a thrill, and I'm sorry that I ran so late, but it's such a thrill to have you ladies and to be with us this morning. So I want to start at the, and I'm getting an echo. I gotta turn my, hold on one second, please. I gotta turn my speakers down. Or it might be somebody else's. Can you both just lower your speaker down a little bit? Joanne, it's probably yours because Nicole has headset in. And that will just make it so we don't have echo. There we go. So, ladies, let's start by talking about these two books, and if you would, I would love to give each one of you like a minute and a half to talk a little bit about yourselves, why you chose to write these books, and give sort of the because they're very different, these two books. So give us the sort of 1 minute about what your book is like and about. Nicole, do you want to go first?
Sure. My book is called A Life Suspended, Mother and Son Story of Autism, Extinction Bursts, and Living a Resilient Life. So I liked the subtitle because it really kind of wrapped everything up. My son was diagnosed with, for lack of a better term or whatever, high functioning autism. And so he was later diagnosed at 7.5 when he was exploding out of his school and causing quite a ruckus and disruption, and ended up getting expelled. So within that whole experience, we thankfully got a diagnosis of autism, and then we could really come at it from a practical and systematic manner through ABA and getting things put in place for him. So when I went through that experience of dealing with educators and dealing with my emotions and his dysregulation and all of those things, I thought, wow, first of all, we're not alone in this. Second of all, there's a lot of people going through this, and there's a lot of kids that are not being diagnosed or being underdiagnosed. And this story needs to be told for them, for these other parents, for educators. So that's why I wrote the book.
Wonderful. And I don't know, Joanne, are we calling you Joanne or JM? What do you
Joanne.
prefer?
Joanne.
Okay, Joanne.
Fine.
So for you, the story is a little bit different, and that's kind of what I love about the two of you pairing together. Tell us about Choices.
Yeah, so Choices actually began as a blog, and I actually wrote it because I was on a board of directors that was building housing for adults with autism. And I got so many responses for that one blog, and it was my first and only blog. A friend encouraged me to expand it into a book. And my story is about, my son was diagnosed at 3, and this is back in 1993, and I never even heard the word autism before. It was a total shock and a huge learning curve for me. And I was in the middle of a move and a divorce, and now I had this on my plate. And not only was it an education by going through the experience and the education system, but when it came to adult services, when he turned 22, that was a huge awakening. I was led to believe it would be a transition, and it turned out to be quite a challenge. So this is about overcoming that challenge. And I really believe that we need to somehow bridge the gap between public education and adult services because literally overnight at age 22, everything you ever worked for, advocated for, any services they received, you're back at square one.
Yeah.
And it's
In fact, so many people refer to it as falling off the cliff. That's literally what they call that period of time because it's such an abrupt drop off.
yeah,
Um, but you've written this book, and I love the title of it, Joanne, because just the idea that there are choices. Because I know a lot of people who feel like, I
mm,
got nothing.
right.
But even just looking at it and saying, here's what the choices are, um, is I think empowering.
It is, and I think that as parents, I mean, every kid with autism is different, right? And I think, I love that you're going through these jargon words because it's overwhelming. It's like another language. And I was always one of those people, no question is a dumb question. And they would read all the reports at these IEP meetings, and I would say, that's very nice, but now you need to explain it to me. you know, um, and and I think that there needs to be more communication. uh, you know, um, and 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 like Nicole, you know, I happen to work at a middle school with special needs kids, and so there are quite a few people in my building that have read the book, and it helps to educate the teachers because they really, even though they're surrounded by these kids, um, they really don't know what the snapshots are, what the day-to-day challenges are.
Wonderful. So here we have you, both of you, and you have these lovely books, and you're both on these missions. Why did you decide to band together? What was the thought process about? I've got a book over here, she's got a book over there. Let's get together. Tell me about that. Who wants to tell me?
Oh, well, I think it's a funny story because we ended up being at the same event. A mutual friend, someone that Joanne actually worked with, was a self-published author, and she helped other authors get published. And I went begrudgingly because I did not want to publish my own book because it was a lot of work and it was overwhelming. And I went and I'm sitting there, and you know how these things fall into place when you know you're in the right place at the right time, and there's synchronicities and there's something you can't really explain, but you're like, okay, there's a bigger plan here at play. And the woman said, oh, this is a book that I just helped this author, choices. She was a mom and she has a son with autism. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. So then I went up to her after and we had a conversation, and she's like, let me give you my book. And I was like, oh, all right, great. So she gave me her book, and I don't know, ever since then we were just kind of like, "Oh my gosh, we speak the same language, we're doing the same thing." And I said, "Wouldn't it make sense if we kind of like came together as a panel and went out as these two authors doing this advocacy work?" And she said, "Yes," and here we are.
I love it. Because a lot of times, let's be honest, as moms of individuals, right? And you just said it, Joanne, all of these kids, all of these teens, all of these adults on the spectrum, they're their own people. They're different. And so as a mom, when you're reading a book from another mom, really a lot of what we're doing is looking for that acknowledgement of, yes, this part of this is my story. Yes, this part is my story, and yet it's never exactly your story. And I know people are frustrated when they feel like their story is not being told. And what I love is that, Nicole, you describe your son as having high functioning autism, and yet there's still challenges there. And people need to acknowledge that high functioning autism, I mean, we're going to talk about Elon Musk in a second, but everybody thinks, oh, well, that means you're going to go and send rockets to Mars, but there's a lot of challenges on the path. It's not necessarily easy. And Joanne, please speak to us about, I believe that you identify your son as having some profound challenges on the spectrum. But tell me what words you use. And that's a whole different bag, and that story doesn't get told enough. Do you agree? Oh, you're muted, Joanne.
Yeah.
There you are. Okay. We
am
can
I
hear you.
back on?
Yep. Mhm.
Okay. Um, yes, my son is nonverbal. What was your question? What did you want me to speak to?
But,
I
but it's a do you feel like that story gets told enough? Because everybody tells me that story does not get told enough.
um, well, I think in general, going back to the details, um, and I've said this before, I think parents of kids with autism, this the details might be different in their stories, but there's the common threads are the same. You know, you're dealing with behaviors. It just depends on how uh, severe and what kind they are. I think with individuals like my son, um, most times they do not end up in high school. Honestly, um, I think once they hit middle school, the gap gets wider. It becomes more and more of a challenge. Um, Kids get bigger, especially boys. Hormones and autism are not a good combination. um, and so the gap gets wider. And uh, regardless of budget, you know, you will have special needs directors helping you find a place to place your, you know, a residential school to place your son or daughter.
Yeah.
Um, because it becomes a real struggle. And you, I mean, parents as one, even as two, I was a single mom. So I had no one to hand off to. And as it was with my son growing up, I I did have therapists coming to the house, um, but it just wasn't enough, you know. And so you need a staff. And my son is in a group home now, and he gets 24/7, um, and they're wonderful. But they're a staff, and they rotate, and they get a break, and they can continually reinforce and um, keep an eye on him and help him provide him a quality of life that I never could. So I think maybe the stories get lost in the dust because these kids disappear, you know, into residential programs and or day programs that are no longer in the schools, the public schools. Yeah.
But that's a story that needs to be told. There's a lot of parents who will come here and they're at that point where they're having to figure out that piece. And I don't think there's enough stories being told about what the parents went through emotionally and all the machinations of having their child placed and being okay. We were all fed a bill of goods that if it came to that, it was the worst circumstance, and that our lives as parents would be over and that we would be pariahs, which is not true. That there are many parents who have a much better, closer relationship with their children in placement. It doesn't mean you have to abdicate all responsibility. So I appreciate that that story is being told. But really quickly, since we already have started this, tell us a little bit about where both of your children are right now. How old are they? How are they doing? And if you care to, any challenges that or triumphs that you've got going on right now, Nicole?
Sure. My son Jack he goes to a day program, a regular, well, not regular, but a special needs high school, and he travels quite a bit to get there. It's out of district, but it really fits him. It's supportive enough, and he feels like he belongs, which is all you really want your kid to do, is feel like they belong, and he's among peers, and he's made so many good friends, and it's just a great experience for him. And he's finishing up ninth grade. He is in the process of learning how to drive, which is that is a challenge for sure. We're taking it super slow with him, and then he just got a job. So like in his day to day life, he's just, he has a schedule. He works off of that. He's just pretty independent with the supports and that we've put into place over the years. And he's really, he's great. He's doing really well.
Congratulations. And Joanne, you told us a little bit, but how old is your son now?
He just turned 28 in March, and
Wow.
yeah, he's in a group home. I live on the Cape, so he's off Cape, um, and he was in a day hab program up until COVID hit. So I was listening to the tail end of what you were talking about, and it has really affected everyone, the virus, especially our kids. And so he has not been in his day program, but instead of this sending him into a tailspin, he's actually done very well. So yeah, he's happy, he's doing well, and in fact, his ISP, which is just another word for IEP in the adult world, um, is coming up pretty soon, and he's getting really good reports. Yeah,
Wonderful. And
yeah.
they've written in, I've been remiss. They want to know, how can they get the books?
Well, you can go to my website, which is nhdwrites.com, and there's a section for the book, and it will tell you all the places to get it. It's also available on Amazon, so that's always a quick hit for people.
Okay. And Joanne?
And mine also is on Amazon, and you can go to jmcrawfordwrites.com
Wonderful.
and get the book there.
Okay. And we encourage you guys to do that, to get their books. So, ladies, you've both been through a lot of years. I always say, yeah, I used to say there was the pioneers, right? There were the people who were doing this way back when. We're all too young to be considered pioneers, but you guys have sort of run the gauntlet. You guys have gone through all the different stages, or most of them at this point for you, Nicole. You've got a wealth of information and knowledge. So, if there was one piece of advice that you could give, if a family is tuned in today and their child was just recently diagnosed, what piece of advice would you put in their backpack, Nicole?
I would tell them to get support from peers or a community, like find their people, because I found that that would really helped me, and not to be afraid to ask for emotional support, whether that's through someone to help you process it, or someone a professional, because it is a lot, especially when your child is first diagnosed, to kind of sift through all that information and what that means, and then emotionally to digest what that means for you personally as the parent. So that's what I would recommend, I would say.
Love it. And Joanne?
And I would say, in addition to that, um, don't put all your eggs in one basket. You know, take information from all different sources. And then make your own decision, and to remember that you have a voice
Yeah.
and you have the power of the pen. And so, you know, just take in the medical and the teachers, and you know, it's overwhelming, but just take a breath and you make the decision based on the best interest of your child.
Wonderful. And you mentioned the power of the pen. There are many people, parents, on the spectrum, and individuals, parents of individuals on the spectrum, and then individuals themselves on the spectrum, who find, um, I don't know, catharsis, or I don't know what the word is, but that it's transformative to write. The two of you took the time to put things into a full book, and then go through the publication process, which is nothing to sneeze at. That's a pretty intensive process. So I'm wondering what you learned about yourselves in this process. What did writing the book help you to understand about yourself or change about you, Nicole? And Joanne?
Well, for me, just the process was very therapeutic, whether I published it or not. Um, and I think that, I mean, we live it, but I think when you write it down, it even makes it more real somehow. It makes it more credible. You see it and hear it. And so I think it helped the healing process for me. Um, and I didn't know I could write. So that was good. Um, but I don't know. Other than that, I guess I really haven't changed. I still, I think it helped me maybe to have a stronger voice. Maybe that's where the change came in. Yeah.
I'm curious, you know, a lot of times when people are going through something of this nature, and I think in particular for parents when they're going through this with their child, it's a very insulated experience that the rest of the world doesn't really see or get to know. And then you write a book. And are there friends and family that read your book and said, "Oh my goodness, Nicole, I had no idea," or "Oh, Joanne, I wished I'd known." Was there some shock when they read your books? Yeah.
Yeah.
And Joanne, you were nodding
Yeah.
your head too.
Yeah. The comments that I would get back, even from family, I had no idea. Had no idea. Um,
Yeah.
and I think it's because, you get so caught up in the day-to-days, and uh, you're so busy, and then you're so exhausted, like Nicole said. Um, you don't have time to complain about it, you
Yeah.
really don't.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, you're just caught up in the experience. Well, we're about out of time, but I do want to say this, that I think that there is something amazing about when parents write down their stories and tell them. And I think it's healing to people that are in the experience to read them. So I encourage you guys to read the words of these two wonderful ladies. And then when you find the one, because everybody finds a different book, one of you might read Nicole's book and go, "Oh, yes, this describes my experience." Or you might read Joanne's and go, "No, this one describes my experience." I encourage you, you don't have to write your own book. You can give that book to your family members and say, "This is a book that tells partly our story," so that we begin to get to that level of understanding. It doesn't have to be your story, but your mother-in-law can read maybe Joanne's book and go, "Okay, are you going through this? Is this how you feel?" And that sparks the conversation. And that's one of the beautiful things about the written word. So I applaud you two ladies. Happy Mother's Day belatedly. We put the your websites in the chat so that people can go directly there. Of course, you can go to Amazon, but it's probably better if you go directly to their website and buy them uh, and support them in that way. But we thank you so much for sharing your stories with us in this way, in this format, and both in that and in the written word. Thank you so much for all that you've done for your kids.
Ah, our pleasure.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much for having us.
All right, you have a wonderful, wonderful day.
You
Thank you.
too.
Thank you.
Bye
Bye.
bye. Thanks for watching Autism Live. If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye bye for now.
subscribe, click here. And if you'd like to check out some more of our videos, click here.